Working on a 2009 Chevy Cobalt, and today I'm going to be replacing the shifter solenoid inside the transmission. And the code I'm getting is for second gear, but I'll go ahead and replace all of them while I'm in there. I'm not sure how easy this is going to be to record, but basically you have to remove the side of the transmission, the case that is on the driver's side. So you have to remove the axle, you have to remove the fuse box, the ECM, the TCM, all the wiring up here so you can get to the top of the transmission. Then remove the shifter cable, the gear selector, and all the wiring. And then you pull off all the bolts for the front half of the transmission case. In order to do that, you have to take off the top transmission mount, and so you have to support the engine and everything. It doesn't need a lot of support, but you do need something underneath there so it just doesn't come down. Pull the axle out, and you pull that whole front off of the transmission. This is one of my parts cars right here, where you can see the transmission a little bit better. And you can see once you remove the fuse box and everything on top, you can get to the shifter cable, the gear selector, and that just pulls right up, and then all the wiring. And here's the top transmission mount that you have to remove all the 13mm bolts, pull that front half of the transmission housing off, and of course that's after you remove the axle and support the front half of the transmission. And then the solenoids are pretty easy to get to, and you just remove the wiring harness and pull out a pin, a clip, and then it just pops right out. So after you remove all this and the transmission mount, be able to remove the front housing of the transmission, and this is where the axle goes, and that just slips right up. And that's just right there. There is plenty of room to snake that out. Alright, I just removed this from the transmission I just tore down. Here is the oil pump, and that's what that looks like. But here are the shift solenoids. So you use a pair of pliers to pull out the clips. And then you can pull these out, and there is a spring in there, so sometimes they will pop out, and that is what it looks like. And I always replace both of them when I'm in here. Then inside this chamber where they go is the spring, so it goes just like that. If you take the valve control body off, here's the oil pump. And there's the back side of it. And then that's what it would look like, only down in the front of the transmission like that. Now you don't have to remove this whole part right here. All you literally have to remove is the cover, and then get in here to replace the shift solenoids. So it's a pretty easy job once you get to accessing the shift solenoids from inside the transmission, but you do have to remove the front tire, axle, fuse box, transmission mount, all the wiring. Make sure you disconnect the battery before you start any of this. So you have to do a lot of work to get to it, but once you get to it, it's a pretty straightforward job. Now I'm going to go over to the transmission I removed from a parts car a while ago and show you the process of removing the front half of the transmission case by the driver's side, and then show you the process of removing the shift solenoids individually with the valve control body still in the transmission, because you can do this completely inside the transmission. You don't have to remove the valve body, only the shift solenoids. So the first thing I'm going to do is drain the transmission pan, get all the fluid out.
Okay, now I'm going to
remove the shift cable, and you just pull up on it, and it just pops right off.
It just pulls right off.
Now I'm going to remove this bracket.
Looks like all these are going to be 13 millimeters.
All the bolts for the driver's side transmission case take a 13 millimeter. Remove the gear selector. This is where all the wiring plugs into for the transmission. And that just pops off. There's a wiring harness that plugs into this. Remove all the 13 millimeter bolts, nuts. And then separate the transmission case. That is where your axle and axle seal go. Unplug the wiring harness for the shift solenoids. Get those completely out of the way. Next, pull the clips that hold the shift solenoids in, and they just pop right out. And that's the pressure control sensor. And to put it back in, you just reverse the process. Now it's time to do the complete job on this 2009 Chevy Cobalt with the transmission completely inside the car. It's just almost impossible to film. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.